are talking about pretty much the most controversial conversation on our social media this morning. A lot of people have been weighing in over the Billy Graham rule. So first, let me break down what the rule is for you. If you're not familiar, it is when a married person does not want to be alone with someone of the opposite sex. It's an effort to avoid suspicion or maybe compromising their marriage. And so why it's timely is because a deputy in North Carolina in Lee County is suing the sheriff's office after he was fired in 2017 for refusing to train a female employee. And he's suing for $300,000, saying that it was religious discrimination. And some legal experts are now weighing in too, saying, no, this is just a failure to separate church and state. So a lot of people are talking about it. We actually have the poll. You can see it at the bottom of the Facebook Live of what you think. So you can still go vote.
Guys, like I really take this strong of a stand on something, and I fully understand and appreciate how beloved Billy Graham here is in the Charlotte area and really around the world for that matter. Like, come on, like this assumes the worst of everyone involved, of men that we can't control ourselves, of women that they need to be on the receiving end of this sort of discrimination, because this means that women will not be going out to work lunches or being trained, or, I mean, there's a serious, legitimate, practical downside to this. And as I said, at some point we've got to, and this comes up in almost any sort of conversation that we have about this sort of thing, at some point, hey, we live in a modern society. We've got to put our big boy pants on and like interact with people we might not agree with, that might not look like us, who might not have the same religious beliefs as us, who might be a woman, who might be a gay man, who might be a lesbian, and we're expected to work with them. And it's not asking too much of someone to do that. And I feel pretty strongly about that. And I don't think that should be a controversial notion. With all due respect to Billy Graham.
You know, the one thing we have to mention is this goes back, and it started when he was doing the Crusades. It goes back to about 1947. He and his two closest associates traveled around the world. The difference in this is they were surrounded by thousands of people, and there was the opportunity there to have situations, and that's why they made that agreement. It's a little bit different
almost
than
like
just the average guy.
like a rock star, almost like a groupie.
He was.
Like, yeah, absolutely.
He actually was.
Okay,
let me just say something about Billy Graham. And when he first started out, was a star.
100%.
Surrounded by all people and surrounded by a lot of females. And so he made that dedication. So this is a little bit different from
100%.
his perspective than the average person.
Correct. So let me say this. It seems as though this is a promise that Billy Graham made to his wife.
Sure.
In order to make her feel comfortable, because yes, again, he was a celebrity. Everyone said he was like the Hollywood pastor, very good looking, super handsome, had groupies. And it's weird to say that about someone who's a preacher, but yes, had groupies. This rule, as far as I'm concerned, is a dinosaur. I understand why Billy Graham enacted it for himself and his wife in 1948, I think is when it first became popular. However, at this point, it is offensive to women, first of all, to say that you can't be around me because you can't control yourself. In this era of Me Too movement, like, come on, this is a relic of a rule, and it seems like a cop-out. And also now men are using this to say they don't want to be accused of any sort of sexual misconduct with the woman, so they don't want to be alone with the woman.
There have been some situations, unfortunately, with some of these men who have been who are men of power, who've been with women and taken too much advantage.
Right, so my whole point is to not be accused of sexual misconduct, don't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
I think, too, people are talking about how this is a disadvantage then for females in the workforce, like they're missing out on opportunities. But I will say I have a couple friends that work for churches, and they have this kind of rule, like where if you can't be alone in the same room, or they have their offices have windows on it, so don't close the door or close the door. And if that's the case, if you want to live by that rule or work by that rule, work for a place that abides by that.
We're talking about a public employee.
Right, like
at
a
sheriff's
deputy.
department who would not train a female deputy because she was a woman. And I just think it's unfair to everyone across the board, and again, it assumes the worst of everyone involved. We should say, though, this is not just a religious thing. This is, it is a religious thing for sure, but it's not just something churches do. Our vice president right now, Mike Pence, said recently, a year or two ago, that he abides by this rule with his wife. And you got to think, I mean, the other people who are working in the old executive office building there next to the White House and with the vice president, do they feel at all slighted, some of the women, because of this sort of policy?
This problem has happened even with the highest office, as we
100%.
know.
Right, but it's
Yeah.
sexist. The
Yeah.
whole thing is
Oh, it
it's
is, yeah.
sexist in the root of it is sexism. When people try to use this as, oh, the Billy Graham rule, that they should be covered somehow.
Yeah.
Like, how about you just behave professionally?
And it's the woman that gets penalized. in
Right,
this.
it's not
like,
fair.
because, oh, me as a man, I can't control myself. We're going to penalize you.
Right, so now I can't be around you.
Yeah, 60-40.
I think we have some of the comments, if we haven't
Yeah.
shown them already,
Yeah.
because a lot of people have been on social media. Let's see, one person thinks that it's a good policy. Let's click to the next.
Do we have anyone weighing
Walter
in?
says, time to suck it up. You took a job that brings you in contact with all kinds of people. Do your job, America. Stop suing at the drop of a hat.
Exactly.
Regula, I think I said that right, says she doesn't think it's right.
Again, saying.
Again,
Yeah.
Childish.
It implies that men have no self-control and blames the woman for lack of self-control. Who's the weaker sex here?
Yeah.
Well, the poll's definitely been changing, and
And then this person saying men
men
get
will-
accused of things all the
And
time.
I'm sure, Amanda, if you were sitting here right now in front of us, I'm sure we would have a lively, healthy discussion, and you'd bring up some points that we're not thinking about. But as it stands, I don't understand why this would be an appropriate defense in a public workspace. But